Here is how Britain devastated America during the War of 1812. British forces entered the American capital, launched a fierce attack on the White House in Washington, D.C., and set it ablaze, resulting in a crushing defeat for the American army. Hello, friends, and a warm welcome to our YouTube channel, Ani History TV. If you enjoy our video, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you can watch full historical documentaries. So, let us explore the War of 1812, fought between America and Britain, a conflict driven by the aim to establish dominion over Canada. Imagine a young nation barely 30 years old, filled with ambition, confidence, and a growing sense of destiny. To the north lies a vast territory controlled by the mighty British Empire. Many Americans believe taking it will be easy. Some politicians even claim it will require nothing more than a simple march across the border. But what follows becomes one of the most dramatic and misunderstood wars in North American history. This is the story of the War of 1812, the conflict that brought the United States, Great Britain, Canada, and indigenous nations into a struggle that would shape the future of an entire continent. The year is 1812. Across the Atlantic Ocean, Europe is consumed by the Napoleonic Wars. The British Empire is fighting desperately against the forces of Napoleon Bonaparte. To stop France from gaining power, Britain dominates the seas with its powerful navy. But Britain's actions create growing anger in the United States. British warships routinely stop American vessels and search them for suspected deserters. Thousands of American sailors are seized and forced into service in the Royal Navy. Americans view this as a violation of their sovereignty and national honor. At the same time, many Americans believe British officials in Canada are encouraging indigenous resistance against American expansion into the western frontier. Tensions rise year after year. Finally, on June 18, 1812, the United States declares war on Great Britain. Many American leaders are confident victory will come quickly. Future President Thomas Jefferson famously predicts, "The acquisition of Canada this year will be a mere matter of marching." The expectation is clear: invade Canada, defeat British forces, end the war quickly. But reality has other plans. At the time, Canada is lightly defended. The British regular army stationed there is relatively small. Yet British commanders possess one major advantage: experience. Leading the defense is Major General Isaac Brock. Brock understands that he cannot win through numbers alone. Instead, he relies on speed, strategy, and alliances. One of his most important allies is the Shawnee leader, Tecumseh. Tecumseh has spent years trying to unite indigenous nations against American expansion. He believes that if the United States continues moving westward, indigenous lands and cultures will be destroyed. When war begins, Tecumseh and his warriors join forces with the British. Together, they become a formidable threat. The first major campaign unfolds near Detroit. American General William Hull crosses into Canada expecting little resistance. Instead, he encounters Brock and Tecumseh. Brock devises a brilliant psychological strategy. He repeatedly marches the same soldiers where American observers can see them, creating the illusion of a much larger force. Meanwhile, Tecumseh's warriors move through the forests, making their numbers seem far greater than they actually are. Hull becomes convinced he is hopelessly outnumbered. In August 1812, one of the most shocking events of the war occurs. Without a major battle, Detroit surrenders. More than 2,000 American troops become prisoners. The news spreads across the United States like wildfire. The easy victory Americans expected is nowhere to be found. Instead, the war has begun with humiliation. Yet the conflict is only beginning. Along the border, fighting erupts across vast forests, rivers, and lakes. Soldiers struggle through difficult terrain. Disease spreads through camps. Supply lines break down. Harsh weather becomes as deadly as enemy bullets. As the months pass, both sides experience victories and defeats. The Great Lakes become crucial battlefields. Whoever controls these waterways controls the movement of troops and supplies. In 1813, the war intensifies. American naval commander Oliver Hazard Perry achieves a stunning victory on Lake Erie. After defeating the British fleet, Perry sends a famous message: "We have met the enemy, and they are ours." The victory changes the balance of power in the region. American forces regain Detroit and begin pushing deeper into British territory, but the war comes at a terrible cost. In October 1813, the Battle of the Thames takes place. During the fighting, Tecumseh is killed. His death marks a tragic turning point. For years, he had dreamed of creating a united indigenous confederacy capable of resisting American expansion. With his death, that dream begins to fade. Many indigenous communities lose their strongest military and political leader. The consequences will be felt for generations. Meanwhile, events in Europe are changing everything. By 1814, Napoleon's empire is collapsing. Britain no longer needs to focus all of its attention on Europe. Thousands of experienced British soldiers become available for service in North America. Suddenly, the United States faces a far greater challenge. British leaders decide to strike directly at the heart of America. In August 1814, British troops land near Washington. American forces attempt to stop them but fail. The road to the capital lies open. Soon, British soldiers march into Washington. Government buildings are set ablaze. The Capitol burns, the Treasury burns, and the President's house, later known as the White House, burns as well. Flames illuminate the night sky. For Americans, it is one of the darkest moments in the nation's history. The capital city is in enemy hands, yet Britain cannot maintain its position. Shortly after the occupation, a powerful storm strikes the region. The British withdraw. The war continues. Next, British attention turns toward Baltimore. The city is heavily defended. Its key stronghold is Fort McHenry. Throughout the night, British warships bombard the fort. Shells explode in the darkness. Rockets streak across the sky. Defenders wait anxiously. When dawn finally arrives, the American flag is still flying. The fort has survived. Among those witnessing the event is lawyer Francis Scott Key. Inspired by this sight, he writes a poem that eventually becomes the Star-Spangled Banner, the national anthem of the United States. As 1814 draws to a close, both sides are exhausted. Thousands have died. Trade has been disrupted. Economies have suffered. Families have been torn apart. Neither nation sees a clear path to total victory. Peace negotiations begin in the city of Ghent. After months of discussions, representatives from both countries signed the Treaty of Ghent on December 24th, 1814. The treaty essentially restores pre-war boundaries. Neither side gains significant territory. Officially, the war is over. But there is one problem. News travels slowly across the Atlantic. Many military commanders have no idea peace has been declared. As a result, one final battle is about to take place, a battle that will become legendary. January 1815. The location is New Orleans. Defending the city is General Andrew Jackson. British commanders believe they can seize the city and gain leverage before news of the treaty arrives. They launch a major assault. The result is catastrophic. Jackson's defensive positions are strong. American artillery is devastatingly effective. Within a matter of hours, British forces suffer enormous casualties. The Battle of New Orleans becomes one of the greatest American victories of the war. Ironically, it occurs after the peace treaty has already been signed. When news of both the treaty and the victory reaches the American public, celebrations erupt. Many Americans view the outcome as proof that their nation has successfully stood against the British Empire. But who actually won the War of 1812? The answer depends on whom you ask. Canadian historian Pierre Berton famously wrote, "We are Canadians and not Americans because of a foolish war." For Canadians, successfully resisting American invasions becomes an important part of national identity. For Americans, the war becomes a story of resilience, independence, and national pride. For Britain, the conflict is largely overshadowed by the far larger struggle against Napoleon. And for indigenous nations, the war marks a devastating turning point. The British alliance that many indigenous leaders depended upon weakens after the war. American expansion accelerates. Large areas of indigenous land are gradually lost. Modern historians continue debating the conflict. Canadian military historian Charles Perry Stacey once observed, "Everybody interprets it in his own way." Perhaps that is the perfect summary of the War of 1812. More than 2 centuries later, its legacy remains complex. No major borders changed. No nation achieved total victory. Yet the war transformed North America. It strengthened American nationalism. It helped shape Canadian identity. It altered the future of Indigenous peoples. And it proved that history is not always defined by who gains territory. Sometimes history is defined by what people choose to remember. The War of 1812 was more than a military conflict. It was a clash of ambitions, a struggle for survival, and ultimately a story that helped create the nations we know today. The smoke of battle disappeared long ago, but the echoes of that war can still be heard across North America. More than 200 years later, its story continues to captivate historians, scholars, and anyone fascinated by the forces that shape nations.